Hi, everybody. Welcome to my homestead and welcome to my channel. My name is Jared. If you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe. I got an email from Patty Bench. Subject line, #Rising Generation, the finest generation quote. An evening with the general authority, Elder Bednar discussion. And then she provides the quote, which we're going to go directly to the source to read that, and then says, I thought you might like this to go with your rising generation quotes. I thought this whole question and answer meeting was powerful. It's from 2020, but I had not heard it until this weekend. The rest of the video contains a lot about understanding the Holy Ghost. Thank you for your hard work. And thank you, Patty, for the email. This is actually a quote that I already had, but if it hadn't been for your email, I wouldn't have had the entire quote. What I mean is that what I had before were the highlights, which seemed like it was the full quote. I thought it was just like highlights from the meeting and it had the full quote. But I guess they kind of like condensed it or simplified it to where it's not what he actually said word for word. And there was additional information surrounding the quote that I didn't have before. So I'm glad that you sent me the email. Okay, so this is what we're looking at. An evening with the general authority, Elder Bednar discussion, teaching religion to youth and young adults. Okay. We have come here, I think, a couple times. I think it's the same one that he said something out. He was talking about receiving revelation and at the church level, prophets receiving revelation, and then it's not always implemented right away, but that things develop over time. I think it's this one, but anyway, that's not the point. Let's go ahead and read the quote. Okay. To live on the earth in this season of the dispensation of the fullness of times is the blessing of a lifetime. I say thank you on behalf of the First Presidency and the Quorum of the 12 and the Church Board of Education. Thank you. A number of years ago when I was in Rexburg, President and Sister Hinckley were there, and we were having a dinner to express gratitude to people who were supporting the university. And I was seated next to President Hinckley, and we were talking about his schedule and all the talks that he had to prepare. And there was a moment where my hands were just up on the table, and kind of suddenly he just patted my hand and he said, David, this is the greatest season in the history of the restored church. David, it wasn't better in the days of Joseph. It wasn't better in the days of Brigham. Never has the church been as well regarded, as well recognized as it is today in all the world. David, never have we had the resources to move this work forward in all the world. David, this is the greatest season in the history of the restored church. End quote. And he's right. Absolutely right. Think of the things we are blessed to see. Consider that we live this year in the 200th anniversary of the first vision. And we see the church in Papua New Guinea, where a temple has been announced, in Phnom Penh, if that's how it's pronounced, Cambodia. Who would have thought? I'm old enough to remember when I could not have conceived the thought that we would have missionaries in the Soviet Union. And now we have a temple in Ukraine and missionaries in formerly communist countries. This is the greatest season in the history of the restored church, and we have a particular responsibility in this day. There's not a gracious way to say this. When I was the president of BYU Idaho, every Tuesday we had a devotional, and every single devotional speaker began his or her message with, "You're the finest generation. You have been saved for this day." I have had that up to here. I'm just tired of hearing it. That's right. In Arkansas, where I lived for a long time, there's a saying, when you pick up a stick, you get both ends. If they've been saved for this day, it's because they have a lot to do. And we have a role in helping them to be ready for that. And we have a lot to do. And we need to be ready for that. This is the greatest season in the history of the restored church. The greatest opposition, the greatest opportunities. And so there's the quote, the full quote. So I think that's interesting because I think what he's saying here in this last paragraph is like, people may have people may have the misconception that, oh, it's, they're the greatest generation. Isn't it so great that, they're the greatest generation and they have so much to look forward to and whatever. And he's like, yes, but the reason why they're the greatest generation is because they're going to do a lot of work. They're going to have like the most work to do, maybe accomplish the hardest things, or, more is going to be asked of them. He says at the end, the greatest opposition and the greatest opportunities compared to previous generations. It reminds me of another quote, this one by President Nelson. And this one has always stood out to me. This is on YouTube, on the KSL News YouTube channel. And the name of the video is called President Nelson, Brilliant Mind, Gentle Heart. And this was posted on April 1st, 2018. So it went along with General Conference, and it was kind of like, here's our new prophet. And they did like this special video on him. And at the 43-minute and 51-second mark, this is what President Nelson said. I think the young people of the church are the finest that have ever been on planet Earth. They've come with that special equipment that God has reserved for the wind-up scene prior to his second coming. And specifically, it's this phrase right here, special equipment. You can let me know what you think that means. I think that means spiritual gifts, potentially training in the premortal life, because we know that all of us prepared for our life here on earth. There were those that were foreordained due to righteousness, such as prophets, apostles, but also bishops and, young women's leaders, and all of it. We've all been foreordained to do what we're doing here. So I would imagine it's a combination of the two, the training and foreordination in the premortal life, as well as spiritual gifts that we possess in this life. I think that that's the special equipment. But he's making a distinction between previous generations and what he calls the finest generation, which are the youth of today. At the time that he's saying this, the youth, so this is, again, April 1st, 2018, the youth at that time were Generation Z. And of course, I think it would bleed into other generations too, but particularly the youth at the time that he's talking. And I recently did a video. I did a live stream to celebrate the 3 years that I've been doing this YouTube channel and everything that I've learned and the things that I've noticed that doing a YouTube channel can accomplish. I talked about the Flood the Earth challenge. I've talked about people that have told me that they've decided to come back to church, go to the temple. They hadn't been to the temple in a long time or didn't have a temple recommend. And I'm not going to list all the things, but it was surprising because there's a lot. And we do have the greatest opportunities. And it's easier now than it ever has been to spread the gospel because, look, we have things like the internet and we have things like YouTube where you can start a channel and then have a decent sized audience, maybe a very large audience. There are other LDS YouTubers that have a lot of subscribers. Mine is climbing its way up the ranks, but there's so many things that we can do now that weren't possible in the days of Joseph Smith and Brigham Young. And I feel like a lot of it has to do with travel as well as the internet. I think those are probably the two biggest things, in my opinion. And so I would encourage you, regardless of your generation, to take advantage of that. Whether it's doing something like a YouTube channel or whether you just have special skills, talents, abilities, whatever they may be, consecrate those things to the Lord. Because we're in a special time. And like Elder Bednar said, we have a lot of work to do. So take those things that you have and develop them and consecrate them to the Lord. Okay, so I have this quote, the full quote saved on my quotes rising generation spreadsheet, which we're looking at right here. I also have it on my quotes A through Z spreadsheet. It's currently under row 409, season greatest in the history of the church. And Elder Bednar has repeated this concept of this being the greatest season in the history of the church. He's repeated it one, two, three, at least 4 times that I know of. And I also have a direct quote from President Hinckley, which I'd like to read that really quick. So this is from Church News, Messages of Inspiration from President Hinckley, May 9th, 1998. He says, I want to read you the words of Peter, spoken long, long ago. But ye are a chosen generation, a royal priesthood, an holy nation, a peculiar people, that ye should show forth the praises of him who hath called you out of darkness into his marvelous light. 1 Peter 2, verse 9. My brothers and sisters, we are a chosen generation. This is the greatest season in the history of the world. And we've been blessed to come forward at this time, this greatest of times of discovery. This is the grandest age of all. During my lifetime, there have been more scientific discoveries than in all the generations that preceded it. And you and I are upon the earth at this time. Beyond all this, we live in a time when the gospel of Jesus Christ has been restored. This is the dispensation of the fullness of times, when all that the Lord placed upon the earth in prior generations has come forth in this generation, to bless those of us who are members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. How thankful we ought to be, how anxious we ought to be to do that which the Lord would have us do. Out of the gratitude which we have in our hearts, we ought to be willing to do anything that he asks us, to live the word of wisdom, to pay our tithes and offerings, to be active in the church, to carry responsibilities, to reach out to those who come into the church and help them and friendship them, that they may remain true and faithful. My brothers and sisters, ye are a chosen generation, a royal priesthood. So right here, he says the greatest season in the history of the world. And then he told that to Elder Bednar, which he has repeated a number of times. And then to finish this off, I noticed that I had a couple quotes down here where I still had them tagged as new in column A, which I feel like I may have actually already read this in another video, but just in case I didn't, let's read these really quick. Okay, the first one, again, this is President Hinckley. I got this from Brandon Porter, and this is an evening with President Gordon B. Hinckley, a challenging time, a wonderful time. February 7th, 2003. Okay. How marvelous is the generation with which you deal. We have never had a generation its equal in all the history of the church. They are better educated, they are more familiar with the scriptures. I believe they pray with a greater measure of faith, have a greater desire to do the will of the Lord, are more active in the church, go into the world as better prepared missionaries, and live to become better parents. It seems to me that the good are getting better and the bad are getting worse. So at this time, the youth would be the millennial generation, the millennials. Okay, and then in, let's see, this is the October 2003 General Conference, Realize Your Full Potential by Elder Richard G. Scott of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles. And I also got this from Brandon Porter. Okay. I have had like experiences with youth across the earth. The faculty at our 3 universities note a significant increase in capacity and spiritual sensitivity of students. Something extraordinary is happening. Do you sense it? Truly, as obedience and morality decline in the world, the Lord is sending more exceptional spirits to earth. As a body, they excel the average capacity of their forebears. their potential for personal growth and positive contributions is enormous. So, and then one more time, it's obligatory every time that I visit this spreadsheet or we talk about generations. There's always got to be somebody that says, oh, they've always said that. They've always said it. And just one more time, no, they haven't. They haven't. I've been doing this YouTube channel for 3 years. People send me, as you can see, they send me just all these quotes, and then I search for quotes myself. We have powerful tools like the Scripture Citation Index, where you can search General Conference talks going back to 1942. You can search the Journal of Discourses. And, I feel like I can reasonably assure you that no, they haven't. Because I can't find anything whatsoever before 1966. The only thing that really compares would be Joseph Fielding Smith, who said that while he was writing Doctrines of Salvation, he felt that there were those then living that would see the second coming. And then we have Joseph Smith talking about, he prophesied that there would be those of the rising generation that would not taste death until Christ comes. The presumption there would be that he's referring to the final appearance. Maybe he's referring to other appearances. I don't know. But we have this generation where, say that you have a parent that's 18 years old at the time that he says this, or say that it's like 16 years old and it's a male. Okay, so you have a father, that father's a child. Okay, that same father later on in life could remarry, could enter into plural marriage perhaps. And there are men that have children into their 80s and their 90s. I've done videos about that. There was an article talking about, I think it was Al Pacino and somebody else, that were old fathers. And so if this hypothetical parent had a child in their 80s, at 82 years old, that's the same age. That child that would be born at that time would be the same age as the oldest living person right now, Maria Brañas Morera in Spain, in Catalonia. So, and the same person could have had children later on, like in their 90s. And if they had, like, say, 99 years old, or if it was a 16-year-old, then it'd be more like 97 years old. Then you have President Nelson, and you have his generation. I'm not saying that President Nelson's parents are that old, or like had him when they were that old. They weren't. But we don't know every single person in the world. So anyway, the point is, no, these quotes didn't really start coming in until the 1960s. And if you have something older than that, or if you have something that I don't already have on this spreadsheet, then send it my way, and then we'll do a video about it. Okay, well, that's going to be it for this one. If you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe, like this video if you liked it, leave your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. Also, make sure to share it, and I'll talk to you guys later.